I feel the earth move, so much heart to teach, yesterday and tomorrow, all in our own reach. Walking the route of earth, filling moments with truth, reaching every footstep's birth in its ever-circling youth. I feel the earth move. Planetary empaths feel the earth move. Welcome back, everyone, to Conscious Commentary in the Garden, and if it's your first time here, of course, welcome. I'm going to make this an abbreviated version of our show because what I want to do today is really pick up where we left off on Wednesday. If you happen to tune in, we did an extraordinary episode on the idea of planetary empaths. What is it? Who's having or exhibiting symptoms that go along with being a planetary empath, and really what's going on. Something that we're going to continue to dig into as we go through this very, very unique time that I feel unequivocally is linked directly to people having increased physical symptoms, not the same as being sick per se. And again, I want to pause and be very, very careful about assigning physical symptoms to a phenomenon that we still know very little about. However, because I have heard so much from all of you, and as a matter of fact, the main thing I want to do is get to a few of the comments that you left for me based on Wednesday's show and really kind of dig into this a little bit more. As many of you know, two things. I tend to not like labels because I think that they can be at times misleading, and yet it seems that this is how we sort of put things in buckets to the extent that we can and really try to understand what's going on in our own lives, put it into some form of context. But I do, if there is such a thing as a planetary empath, of which Trish and Rob MacGregor both feel is a real phenomenon, I believe myself to be one of those individuals. Going through the physical symptoms that I have had really on and off throughout this entire pandemic, starting in really February, that would include the white noise in the ears, and now vertigo, dizziness, etc. I'm not going to go through all the symptoms. I really want to urge you to go back and listen to the episode on Wednesday because we really drill down on some of the symptoms that seem to be indicative of being a planetary empath. But what I'm going to do is I want to read to you a couple of comments. I think I put 3 comments here. There have been many from Wednesday's show, and see if we can address some of the things that are brought up. And I want to thank all of you for commenting on this show, and others, of course, but particularly this, because when you see such a visceral response to a particular subject that we discuss on the show, we know something is going on. And so that's why I really wanted to stay on the subject today and continue down the road of exploring, discovering, and understanding and unpacking just what a planetary empath is. And eventually, perhaps we can dig into how do we regulate ourselves so that we're not in a form of suffering. Because we're talking about individuals who are not only empathic, but are having physical symptoms tied inextricably to an event or events that are going on. Let me get to some of the comments, and I'm going to watch the time here. We're definitely not going to go that long this afternoon. I want to start with, it looks like the person's name is Earthling here. Earthling here. Hi, Earthling here. That threw me for a little bit. Very interesting, and may have something to do with what this person's talking about. This person says, yes, yes, yes. Now there is a reference for this, talking about planetary empaths. Thank you. I remember exactly where I was and how old I was, 19 back in 1972, when I had the realization that something was very wrong with the earth, as in danger. Time went on, and I would ask my friends if they felt the same, and no one did. Time passes, and in late 2012, I had a massive awakening, this time, and about 6 months later, my ears began ringing and have never stopped. It does not hurt, but can get extremely loud at times. I do experience popping in the left ear now, and then most recently this week, I never correlated it to world events, but then there are so many these days. And she says, thank you both. Thank you very much, Earthling here. And I'm assuming she, I'm not sure if it is. It's always difficult with the avatars to know whether it's a he or a she. Nonetheless, Earthling here. One of the things that, if you recall, when you watched the show that Trish and I discussed, was this idea that even though Mercury retrograde, and I'm sure many of you know what that is and what that denotes, was technically over about a month ago, it seems that the features of a retrograde where things are going awry and sometimes people do have physical symptoms, issues with concentration, etc., seem to be sustained. They seem to be this wonkiness, let's call it, seem to be, we're right in the thick of it right now for whatever reason. I really wish I had an answer for everyone as to why that is. I think Trish went into some astrological aspects that might explain the sustained wonkiness, but I do think all of this is connected to some of these physical symptoms that we're having. Now, Earthling here mentioned that it was back in 1972 when they were 19 years old. They were obviously very sensitive to the fact that there was something off kilter with the planet. Well, I think a lot of people have been tuned into that in whatever way they sort of distill what that means and what actually is wrong. But I think the person here is saying that we're seeing an uptick in that recently, an uptick in people feeling and getting these symptoms, and particularly with the ears ringing. And also, Trish talked about the clicking and the popping. I know I have that on occasion in one ear. Is it that we are so tethered to this planet, including the things that are happening on this planet, that some of us are literally taking on the physical sensations? I'm trying to think of another word besides symptoms, because I think it's more than symptoms. We're picking up on the energetic signature of the planet and what's going on the planet. So thank you, Earthling, here for that sharing that story with us. Here's another one from Janice Darling, and I do believe this is a she. She says, I have had such a hard time through this. I was rarely ill. This is very, very deep, and I recall reading this a couple of times. I'll start again. I've had such a hard time through this. I was very rarely ill, but I have been seriously ill since December of 2018 with different things. I've been so unable to work that I lost my job as an RN. I can't bear to apply for a job as a nurse. Ears are ringing, weird sleep patterns, unusual headaches, eyesight changes, GI issues, inability to focus, time loss. It's so all over the place. Savings is about to expire, so I'm trusting the process to figure out my next direction. She says, I'm driving myself nuts. Janice, first of all, I am very, very sorry that you're going through such a list of symptoms, sensations. I'm going to try to think of another word because I think it's even deeper than that. These are more than symptoms, but really a collection of features that many of us who are extraordinarily sensitive are going through. Again, the sleep patterns being all over the map. I know a lot of individuals, whether they consider themselves empathic or not, are talking about waking up and not knowing what day it is. Well, heck, look at what we have gone through in the last several months. Our lives have been literally turned upside down. And so to see or to experience not only emotional states being very erratic, but physical symptoms coming in is really no surprise. But again, you put that layer on top of individuals who are have a proclivity toward being sensitive, and it can really be out of control. Janice, again, there's no way I don't think that there's anyone that has a complete answer to solve our dilemma that we're in, other than to continue to talk, to know that we are not alone in what we're feeling, although it obviously feels as if we're very alone when we're going through this pain on whatever level. I would advocate as much alone time in solitude, coming out in nature as possible. Going back to a show that we did several episodes ago of In the Garden, I talked about taking your shoes off, putting your feet on the ground. It's known as grounding or earthing, and allowing your surroundings, nature, to compost all that it is that you need to get rid of, at least to help and alleviate as much as possible that pain. It can be a very, very difficult thing to take on oneself. And I do feel that even though, well, let's look at it this way. For those of us who consider ourselves planetary empaths, it could be that that process may actually be more powerful because of our such close connection to the earth. It may not be as difficult to get in touch with her and ask her and have her receive what it is you wish to unload, if you will. It's something to think about. So Janice, that's something that you might want to try, my dear, and I do certainly hope that you're able to gain some equilibrium, and I mean that literally. I don't know if you mentioned here vertigo. This is something that I've been dealing with, but getting that equilibrium back. Is it any wonder that, looking at taking vertigo as an example, because I think this is very interesting, this seems to be a feature or a symptom that a lot of planetary empaths talk about. And you have to ask yourself the question, where are these features coming from and why these certain things versus others? Well, when you think about what vertigo is, and I'm not a doctor, obviously, so I can't really go into, I can't go into anything other than a layperson's explanation, but my understanding is it's an extreme form of imbalance in which dizziness ensues. Absolutely. I've had it. It's relatively new since all of this started. But what does vertigo represent? Imbalance. What's happening right now? Not just directly with the pandemic that we're dealing with, but in terms of people's views on all that's going on around us. Everything seems to be out of balance, off kilter. We've lost our equilibrium. I would dare say most people have, whether they're empathic or not. But for those of us that are very sensitive and planetarily empathic, it's no wonder that vertigo would be on that laundry list of symptoms. We are literally embodying that imbalance that the collective is experiencing. So that makes perfect sense. One of the things that Trish and I talked about, one of many things, Wednesday, was this: if there was any way we could try to, even metaphorically, link a particular symptom to, I think in her case, she was talking about sort of a foreboding, a feeling of an event that's occurring and the kind of event that would be occurring. I think she gave an example of, she noted the Boston Marathon as an example, and somebody that had written to her about being a planetary empath and having some very, very specific symptoms prior to the Boston Marathon event, one of which was pain in the bones. And she referenced the fact that allegedly people at the Boston Marathon on that day lost limbs. I'm using that simply as an example to say, if we could really, rather than just try to run away from the fact that we're having these symptoms and try to just put a Band-Aid on them and to get rid of them, if we could really drill down on, okay, I'm having vertigo as an example, what might that represent on a collective scale, particularly with what's happening? We can talk about the imbalance in what's happening politically, certainly with the racial injustice across the board, not to mention what we've been going through in this pandemic period of time. I think that if we can start to not necessarily isolate, because we ultimately want to integrate, but to identify a symptom with what we may be looking at, it might help us to really eventually mitigate some of these effects. Maybe it's universe calling for those of us sensitives to identify, correlate, connect, distill, understand on a whole new level what is happening on this planet with events, scenarios. And once we do, we may be able to navigate better, not just the physical symptoms, but the circumstances we're dealing with. I have a feeling that there is some sort of message that universe is sharing with some of us when we're hit with these physical symptoms. I don't know, it's a thought that just came to me and I think it's worth exploring. Let's keep that part of the conversation going. I'm going to read a final message for you. I am going, I think we'll be a tad shorter than usual this time. My final comment that I wanted to share with you is from Jewel McFillin, who says, sinus issues definitely, I must have talked about it Wednesday. I've been having crazy sinus, I think above and beyond allergens, although they are in the air. But she says sinus issues definitely. It seems every couple of weeks I wonder if I'm fighting a sinus infection. Ringing ears, occasional dizziness. Yesterday and today, waking with odd energy from elbows to fingertips. Just icky, tingly. She says meditation helps and deep breathing, drinking water, to which I send love before drinking, trying herbal supplements. She says, nice to know I'm not alone. Love and light to you. Love and light to you, Jewel. I was struck when I started reading the comments coming in, and again, this is just 3 of I don't know how many at this point. Go back and read some of them and weigh in yourself if you're feeling some of these things. But it's incredible when you can put your own story out there, like I have with my scenario, and the feedback you get. Because I think one of the biggest things and one of the biggest bugaboos of whatever you're going through is the fact that you feel that you're the only one. And to find out that you're not, as a starting point, in and of itself provides a bit of healing. And then once you can get into a conversation about it with others without judgment, because we still, like I said to Trish, even though she feels that there is science to sort of support the fact that there's something planetarily going on, a form of really, in some cases, precognition or psychic tuning in to what's happening on our planet and the planet itself, is, well, it's good to note, but we want to be able to really try to understand the larger message, I think. It's a very difficult thing, our lives, to parse, particularly with the wrenches that have been thrown at us or in this scenario lately. But I think if we take the time, to know that we're not alone, to lean on one another, to continue the conversation, to try to be humble in this very, very powerful, intricate process, to honor the planet and moreover universe for, I think I use the term both blessing and cursing us with these symptoms that can be really a pain in the you-know-what, but really being humble in all of this and resolving to explore, we'll be better off for it. So I want to send love and light to all of you, whether you're a planetary empath or not, everyone, and really, particularly if you feel yourself not to be having any of these, everything's fine with you, but you might know someone that is, send them your love. You may not be able to give them a physical hug right now. Hopefully that'll happen soon, but give them your love, send them your best, and most importantly, listen to them. Listen to what they have to say. Okay, I think I'm going to stop there. Let's see, what do we have for announcements? Oh, so excited. Guess who's coming up once again? We had Billy Carson on probably about 2 or so months ago, but we're going to have him back, but this time we're going to do a live with him. I'm loving the live thing, guys. I always love coming to you live on our every other Friday show, but I thought, I know so many of you always have questions for Billy. He's got his hands in so many pots and so many things going on, so I thought it would be fun to do a live stream with Billy Carson. That's coming up Wednesday. I believe that's the 19th of August. We're going to do it at 3 p.m. Trying to get all the time straight, 3 p.m. Eastern time. So stay tuned for that. And then, of course, 2 days later, God willing, as long as all this, as you know, I couldn't do the last Conscious Commentary live because of this darn sinus infection, but if all stays well, I'll be back 2 days later with Conscious Commentary live, where I think what I want to do is continue this conversation. Let's see what kind of feedback we get based on this particular show. Planetary Empaths, speak up, talk to me, give me your thoughts about what this is all about and how you, if at all, have dug into this mystery to understand why you and what's to be gleaned from it. I do think there's something there. So I'm going to leave you with that, and I'm going to say have a blessed and beautiful Friday and a beautiful weekend, and I'll talk to you soon. Take care.